I never imagined I'd be the kind of woman who would destroy her own life in slow motion. The kind people on the internet talk about with disgust, typing comments like, she deserves everything she got. But maybe I do. My name is Ariana. I'm 27, and a few months ago, I walked away from the only man who ever truly loved me. I told myself it was because I was confused, because I needed clarity before marriage, but the truth is much uglier. I left my fiancé for my ex. Ryan was my fiancé. He's 29, a paramedic, one of those calm, grounded men who seem unshakable even in chaos. We'd been together for 3 years and living together for almost one. Our wedding was supposed to happen in June. We had everything planned: our venue, our honeymoon, our home that smelled like safety and quiet mornings. But somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that love wasn't supposed to feel that steady. I told myself it should be wild and passionate, like in the movies. And that lie ruined everything. It started with a message from someone I should have left in the past. Liam, my ex from college. The kind of man who made me feel alive and anxious at the same time. We were a mess back then, constant fights, big makeups, late-night talks about dreams that never happened. When we ended, it took me months to stop crying. I thought I'd never hear from him again, but out of nowhere, he messaged me on social media. Hey, I heard you're getting married. Just wanted to say congrats. You always deserved good things. It was innocent enough. At least that's what I told myself. I replied, thank you. Hope you're doing well. And that was the start of it all. We started talking again, just a little at first. Old jokes, songs we used to love, random memories that had no business being revived. I told Ryan I was just reconnecting with an old friend. He didn't even question it. He trusted me completely. That trust felt comforting and at the same time, unbearable. I didn't deserve it. The more Liam and I talked, the more I compared everything. Liam was spontaneous, reckless, and unpredictable. Ryan was calm, patient, and predictable in the best way, but I'd stopped seeing it that way. I told myself I needed excitement, that maybe love wasn't supposed to be so still. I started guarding my phone, sleeping with it under my pillow, hiding my messages like a teenager. Ryan noticed. One night, he looked at me with those kind, tired eyes and asked, "Is something wrong?" I lied. I said I was just stressed from work and the wedding plans. He smiled, said he understood, kissed my forehead, and went to sleep. I stared at him, feeling guilt crawl up my throat. And yet I didn't stop. Every morning, Liam would message me. Every night, I'd sneak to the living room to text him back. It felt like a secret life, one where I was the version of myself that laughed louder, felt freer, like nothing was ordinary. I thought maybe that meant I was in love again. Now I know it was just nostalgia, pretending to be passion. One night, Ryan came home holding an envelope. He looked proud. "Just booked the honeymoon," he said. "Greece, like you wanted." He kissed my cheek and handed me the papers. I smiled, but my stomach twisted. I'd spent that morning telling Liam how I sometimes wondered if I'd settled. I looked at the man who loved me enough to plan our dream trip, and all I could think was how unfair it was that he loved me more than I deserved. A week later, I asked Ryan to have dinner with me at our favorite little Italian place. I told myself I'd come clean. I thought honesty would make it better somehow, that if I admitted my confusion, he'd understand. I was wrong. He sat across from me, eyes full of trust, and I broke his heart one sentence at a time. I told him Liam had reached out. I told him I wasn't sure how I felt anymore. I said I didn't want to hurt him, but that I needed time. He just stared at me. Then he asked quietly, "You still love him?" I couldn't answer. He nodded, took a deep breath, and said, "If you think there's something left there, go find out. But don't do it while you're standing next to me." Then he stood up, left some money on the table, and walked out. I didn't chase him. I sat there frozen, surrounded by people laughing over pasta and wine, while my entire life crumbled around me. When I got home that night, he was packing. His face was calm, too calm. I begged him to talk, to not make any decisions yet, but he didn't even raise his voice. He said, "You made your choice, Ariana. I just need to live with mine. Asked if he wanted the ring back. He said yes. I placed it on the counter like it was made of glass. Before leaving, he said, "You don't get to call this a mistake later. You knew what you were doing." Then he walked out the door, and I knew I'd lost something I'd never get back. The first few days after that, Liam became everything. He told me I did the right thing, that we had a second chance, that maybe the universe wanted this. I believed him. I told myself I'd finally chosen my heart. But it didn't take long to realize I'd chosen a ghost. Liam wasn't the same person anymore. He was distant, moody, full of excuses. He'd say things like, "Let's just see how it goes," whenever I asked about the future. I'd left stability for a man who couldn't even decide what to have for dinner. I tried to ignore the warning signs. I told myself love takes time. But deep down, I knew he didn't really want me. He just wanted to see if he still could have me. One night, I asked if he saw us living together again someday. He laughed, said, "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." That was the moment my stomach dropped. I saw it clearly then. I'd left someone who was ready to give me forever for someone who didn't even want a weekend. 6 weeks later, he ended things. Over text. "You're amazing, but I think we were just chasing memories." I stared at my phone, waiting for more. There wasn't any. I tried calling him. He didn't answer. I texted again and realized he'd blocked me. And that's when it hit me. All the lies, all the guilt, all the pain, it had led here. Alone. No fiancé. No ex. No one. Just me, sitting in the apartment Ryan and I picked together, surrounded by wedding decorations I never got to use. I remember looking at the dress hanging in the corner and laughing until I cried. I had wanted passion, chaos, something real. What I got was silence. People like to talk about karma like it's a myth, but I met her face to face. She looked just like me, exhausted, hollow, and full of regret. I destroyed the best thing I ever had because I was afraid of comfort. I thought comfort meant boring. I thought chaos meant love. But the truth? Real love isn't fireworks. It's a steady flame that doesn't burn out when things get quiet. Ryan understood that. I didn't. And by the time I realized it, he was gone. After Liam blocked me, everything around me went silent. My phone, my apartment, my life. All of it felt like it had been muted. I'd stare at my reflection some mornings and barely recognize myself. I used to be the woman who smiled without thinking, who had a future planned, who was supposed to get married. Now, I was the woman who ruined everything because she couldn't tell the difference between love and obsession. For the first few days, I convinced myself it wasn't over. I told myself Liam would call, that he just needed space, that he'd realize what we had was real. I even kept my phone on loud, waiting for his name to pop up. It never did. When it finally sank in that he wasn't coming back, something inside me just broke. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. replaying every moment, wondering why I ever thought he was worth losing Ryan for. I scrolled through old photos of Ryan and me, the way he'd look at me like I was the only person in the world. I used to take that for granted. I used to roll my eyes when he'd ask if I got home safe or when he'd send texts saying, "Miss you already," 5 minutes after leaving. I thought that kind of love was too much. Now I'd give anything to feel it again. My friends tried to help at first. Chloe came over one evening with wine and said, "It's okay, Ari. You just need time." I wanted to tell her that time doesn't heal guilt, it just stretches it out. But I didn't say anything. I just smiled and nodded while she talked about how everyone makes mistakes. She didn't know how deep mine went. A few weeks passed before I found out that Ryan had moved on. It was an ordinary day. I was scrolling through social media, half out of boredom, half out of self-punishment. There he was, sitting outside a cafe, smiling with a woman across from him. She looked so natural beside him, laughing at something he said. I stared at the photo until my hands started shaking. There were no captions, no tags, but he didn't need to say anything. I could see everything in his face. He was happy. I closed the app and cried until my chest hurt. I'd told myself that if he ever moved on, I'd be glad for him. But watching it happen was like being cut open. Because while he was building something new, I was still stuck in the ruins of what I'd burned down. Days turned into weeks. People at work stopped asking about the wedding. The whispers faded, replaced by awkward smiles and careful silence. I could tell my coworkers pitied me, especially when I'd zone out during meetings. One of them, Mrs. Patel, gently said one afternoon, "You should take some time off, dear." I just nodded. She was right. I was falling apart in slow motion. Eventually, I did take time off, packed a small bag, and went back to my parents' house. It was humiliating. The room still looked like it did when I was a teenager. Old posters, dusty books, pink curtains. My mom tried to make me feel better, saying, "You just need to rest. Things will make sense soon." But I could see the disappointment behind her eyes. My dad barely talked to me. He didn't have to. Silence from a father says more than any words could. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, thinking about what Ryan might be doing. Was he laughing? Was he holding her the way he used to hold me? I used to think he'd always be there, that even if I made mistakes, he'd come back eventually. But now he wasn't mine to miss. He belonged to someone who hadn't broken him. I tried to move on too. I downloaded dating apps, went on a few coffee dates. But no one felt right. Every man I met seemed to fade in comparison to him. They'd talk about hobbies or work, and I'd smile and nod. But all I could think about was Ryan's quiet voice saying, "You're home now," whenever I used to walk through the door. I missed the way he'd listen. Really listen. Not the kind of attention that burns fast and disappears like Liam's, but the kind that stays. Then one night I saw a post I wish I hadn't. Ryan's sister had shared a photo of him and that same woman. Her name was Claire. "So happy for you both," the caption said, followed by heart emojis. They looked perfect together. My throat tightened, and before I could stop myself, I clicked on Claire's profile. She worked as a nurse. Her pictures were full of warmth, her with patients, her with family, her cooking dinner with Ryan. They looked real, solid. I hated her for a moment. Not because she did anything wrong, but because she was everything I wasn't. She looked content, grounded, peaceful. The kind of woman who doesn't mistake excitement for love. The kind of woman Ryan always deserved. I spent the next few days thinking about him nonstop. I wanted to reach out, but didn't know how. What could I even say? "Sorry I threw you away for someone who never loved me?" Still, one night after drinking too much wine, I texted him. "Hey, Ryan. I know I don't deserve to ask this, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I miss you." He didn't reply that night. Or the next. I checked my phone every few minutes, hoping for something. Anything. 2 days later, I finally saw the notification. My heart stopped when I read his message. "I appreciate you saying that. I've moved on. I hope you find peace too." That was it. 14 words. So calm, so distant, so final. I read them again and again until my eyes burned. He didn't say my name. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't even sound angry. Just done. After that, I stopped pretending. I deleted my social media, stopped seeing friends, and spent most of my time staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd become this version of myself. I used to think heartbreak meant losing someone. But it's more than that. It's losing the version of you that they loved. I wasn't the woman Ryan fell for anymore. I was a stranger, even to myself. Months passed. I went back to work, but it wasn't the same. I kept to myself, avoided the teacher's lounge, avoided questions. Some of my coworkers treated me gently, like I might break again if they said the wrong thing. Maybe they were right. Every now and then, I'd still check Ryan's profile, not out of hope, but out of habit. He posted less now, but the last thing I saw was a picture of him and Claire hiking, smiling under a sunset. She was holding his hand. He looked at peace. I closed the app and realized that maybe peace was what I'd stolen from him first. I wish I could say I learned my lesson then, that I finally let go. But part of me still hoped life would somehow give me another chance to make it right. Not because I thought he'd take me back, but because I wanted to be someone he could forgive. Someone better. But karma doesn't hand out forgiveness. It hands out lessons. And mine was far from over. A year passed, but it didn't feel like time had moved at all. Every morning looked the same. I'd wake up, stare at the ceiling, and think about the version of my life that no longer existed. Ryan had become like a ghost I kept chasing, one that never turned around no matter how far I ran. Some nights, I'd dream about him, and in those dreams, everything was normal again. I'd wake up smiling, then remember the truth. I wasn't his anymore, and I never would be. I thought I was healing, but I was really just waiting for a chance to undo what couldn't be undone. That chance came one afternoon when my friend Chloe called and said quietly, "You're not going to like this, but I think you should know." My stomach dropped before she even finished. "Ryan's engaged," she said. I didn't respond at first. It was like the words didn't register. She said it again, slower this time. "He proposed to her last weekend." Claire. I thanked her, hung up, and sat there staring at nothing. I should have expected it. He deserved to be happy. I even told myself I'd be fine when this day came. But hearing it felt like someone had twisted a knife into a wound that had just barely started to close. That night I opened the drawer where I'd kept our old photos. They were still there. Our trip to Goa, our first apartment, his stupid grin when we painted the living room. I traced his face with my finger and whispered, "You were supposed to be mine." It was pathetic, I know. But grief makes you say things you wouldn't dare when someone's still listening. The next morning, I made a decision I wish I hadn't. I told myself I just wanted closure, that I'd say my final apology and finally move on. But the truth was I wanted to see him. I wanted to know if any part of him still cared. I found out where he lived from a mutual friend. It wasn't hard. Same town, different address. He bought a house, probably with her. I told myself I'd just drive by. No knocking, no talking. Just a glimpse. But when I got there and saw the lights on, I froze. Through the window, I saw Ryan in the kitchen, laughing, wearing an apron, flipping something in a pan. And she was there, beside him, smiling up at him like he was the center of her world. It hit me all at once. That was supposed to be me. The life I threw away for a man who couldn't even text me back. I watched for maybe 10 seconds, then drove off before I could fall apart right there. I cried the entire way home, gripping the steering wheel until my hands hurt. A few days later, I did something even worse. I sent him a letter. Not a text, not an email, an actual handwritten letter. I spent 2 hours writing it, tearing up pages until my hand cramped. I told him I was sorry. I told him I'd gone to therapy, that I'd realized what I'd done, that I finally understood what love really meant. I told him I didn't want to come between him and Claire, but that I needed to say it. I never stopped caring about him. I sealed it, mailed it, and waited like an idiot for something that was never going to come. A week passed. Then another. No reply. I told myself maybe he never got it. But deep down I knew he had. His silence said more than any words could. Then, one afternoon, I saw him. I was at the local cafe, sitting by the window, pretending to read. He walked in with Claire, hand in hand. They ordered coffee, laughed about something, and sat down a few tables away. He looked even better than I remembered, calmer, happier. Claire leaned her head on his shoulder, and for a moment, he looked up. Our eyes met. It wasn't anger or shock in his face. It was something worse. Indifference. He gave me a polite nod, the kind you give to a stranger you recognize but don't really know. Then he turned back to her, smiled, and went back to his conversation. That was it. 10 seconds of eye contact that closed every door I'd been trying to reopen for a year. I left before they did. I walked to my car and sat there for a long time, trying to breathe. My hands were shaking. I'd spent so long waiting for a moment to fix things, and when it finally came, I realized there was nothing left to fix. I was the only one still living in the past. That night, I deleted every photo, every message, every reminder of him. Not out of anger, out of acceptance. Ryan wasn't coming back. He had built a life with someone who never made him question his worth. And honestly, he deserved that kind of peace. Months later, I heard from a mutual friend that they'd gotten married in a small ceremony by the beach. No drama, no big event, just family and close friends. The friend said, "He looked so happy." I smiled when I heard that. It hurt, but in a strange way, it also healed something. Because maybe that's what real love is, wanting someone to be happy, even if it's not with you. I stayed single for a long time after that. I focused on myself, my job, my mental health. But even now, sometimes, when I drive past the places we used to go, a part of me still whispers, "You had it all and you let it go." The voice isn't cruel anymore. It's just honest. I think about the last words he ever said to me. "You don't get to call it a mistake when it's a choice." Back then, I thought he was being cold. Now I understand. Because love isn't about passion or chaos. It's about choosing the same person over and over, even when life gets boring. He chose me until I gave him a reason not to. I live with that truth every day. It doesn't crush me anymore. It just reminds me to never take a good heart for granted again. Because when you do, you lose something you can't ever replace. Ryan taught me what real love was. Liam taught me what it wasn't. And me? I taught myself the cost of confusing the two. That's my story. My biggest mistake, my biggest lesson, and the reason I'll never again call chaos love.